Welcome to Stillspeakpod. So, I want to talk about the Murdaughs. Let's talk about this for a second. So, we've talked about this a few times, so I want to say it again. So, my very first episode covering the Murdaugh story, I talked about the last name. And I said that I've heard it said several different ways. Some people say Murdaugh, some say Murdaugh, some say Murdaugh. And I even heard some of the family members saying it different ways. And then when I was listening to the recent 911 call that came out about Alex's shooting about a week or two ago, the operator, and even it sounded like Alex, said Murdaugh, like I've been saying it. And when I said that in my first video, I said that Google is saying that it's Murdaugh, so I'm just going to go with that, and I don't really care because I don't think in the grand scheme of the story it really matters. Who cares, right? Well, it seems Murdaugh isn't the only one to be a pain in the butt, because I watched Dateline episode, and I don't know, maybe I was hearing wrong, maybe my volume wasn't up high enough, but it sounded like the host that did all the interviews and talking was saying Alec, not Alex. So I'm going, wait a minute, what did I miss? Is his name Alec? Because I have a relative named Alex, and we never, ever refer to him as Alec. Ever. Nothing wrong with the name Alec, but that's not his name, right? You have Alec Baldwin, and then you have Alexander the Great, and you would call him Alex. So I'm like, you know what? This freaking story, man. Last names, first names, so I don't know. Maybe the guy was saying Alex, but it did not sound like that to me. It definitely sounded like he was saying Alec. And he kept saying what I thought was Alec, and yet everybody he was interviewing never apparently said it's Alex. So I'm like, all right, maybe his real name's Alec. Maybe that's what he goes by. What am I missing here? So I give up, okay? I've been saying Alex Murdaugh. I know his real full name isn't that, but I've been saying that, and I'm sticking to it, okay? See, because I know his actual name is Richard Alexander Murdaugh. So again, like, okay, I can understand going by the middle name because there's a bunch of Richards in the family, and I know a lot of my southern friends, they name their kids like a full name, and then they always call them by their middle name. And I always thought that was strange when I moved from the north to the south. I'm like, why is everybody calling their kids by their middle names? That was just a thing. Not everybody does that, but it seems to be common. So I'm like, all right, well, his middle name's Alexander, so why is this guy saying Alex? So I was all kinds of confused. It really stuck out to me. It kind of made me laugh. I'm just like, all right, I give up with names in this dang case, really. So I watched the Dateline, and, it was just the basic story, right? A couple of things did stick out to me, though, and one of the things that really, really pissed me off, to be completely transparent and blunt here, was they were interviewing Gloria Satterfield's family, who seemed like very lovely, sweet people, okay? And it was Gloria's 3 siblings and her 2 sons who were involved in the lawsuit against Alex after Alex took their millions of dollars in settlement money. And it came out that Brian, one of the sons, they refer to as a vulnerable adult who actually does need the money. Now, as a parent to a child who has special needs, I can't even begin to explain to you how angry it made me to find out that this young man, this vulnerable adult, who I believe does have special needs, was robbed by Alex Murdaugh. I cannot even explain to you. And what I gotta say to that is this. If Alex Murdaugh can do this to a woman's son who worked for him for a really long time. I believe it was 20 years. If you can do this to this young man, you can do anything. That is so low and so disgusting. I was appalled. I cannot even wrap my head around that. Okay? I had no idea about Brian at all. Okay? As far as I just knew him by name. So seeing him, seeing that he could probably use money for whatever it is that he needs, whether it's therapies, medical, I don't know what his actual needs are, okay? And that Alex would be very well aware of that and still do this to him is disgusting. I'm just gonna be blunt. So in my view, you're the lowest of lows. And if you're capable of that, Lord only knows what you're capable of. Now, I just made some quick notes. They're not going to be in any particular order. These were just things that stuck out to me. So in my video, not last night, the night prior, I originally said in my video that Stephen Smith's mother was going to be in the Dateline episode because it looked like her in the trailer. Well, then about 3/4 into my video, I had to pause for a second, and I actually went and looked up who was going to be in the Dateline show, and I stumbled on an article where her lawyer, or the family's lawyer, basically said that they had declined it because their private investigation is leading them to possibly other people not related to the Murdaughs, and so they're going to kind of not be involved. So I made that correction towards the end of my video, and then I watched the Dateline episode, and she's in the video. I mean, in the episode. And I'm like, I thought I saw her, and here, this guy had me all confused, so my apologies to that. She is in the Dateline episode. Sheesh Louise, can't even, goodness, the media can't even report that properly. Come on. They got me all confused. Jeez Louise. Anyway, so that's settled. So she was in it. Very sweet woman, and very sweet daughter as well, and it just breaks my heart. Twins have a very special bond, and that sister must be going through so much. So at one point, they interview the lawyers of the Satterfield sons. Seem like two really nice lawyers. There's a lot of lawyers in this town, or this county, my goodness. And they're talking about the money and how basically they had gotten into Corey Fleming, his records of money, and that's when they made the connection of what they did with this money. And Corey Fleming, if you remember, is the friend, close friend, college roommate, etc. of Alex Murdaugh. Or Alec, whatever. Kidding. So, and at one point, one of the lawyers said something, and when he said it, I was like, oh my gosh, he just hit it on the head. He said that they were still tracking the money and where it all went, or went to, and then he said, you can't spend that much money in Hampton, South Carolina. And when he said that, I immediately thought of how many times I said on here, where is the freaking money? Where did it go? How much money was it? Who got it? Where is it? Is it gone? Is it this? Is it that? And so when he said that, I was thinking like, oh my gosh, because the opening of this episode, is showing the town, and it's not like, New York City. It's like this, country, little quaint little town, cute little area, and now Hampton County is much larger than the little area that they showed, but my point being is that, wow, like, you hit that on the head, like, how are you spending millions of dollars in this particular area of South Carolina? How? So that sent me into a rabbit hole in my brain of like, okay, was he going elsewhere? Did he have a gambling problem? Was he going to other states for other things? I go back again to, is he giving this money to somebody? Is he paying somebody off for something? Who knows? I still don't know the answer. I just really liked what the lawyer said, because I thought, like, wow, I never really thought of it that way. That this particular area, like, where are you spending millions of dollars? right? Another thing that stood out to me was that Gloria's family started to kind of tell the story of what happened to Gloria. Now, most of the media outlets that I saw reporting on Gloria falling, and then, it was Alex who told the story of what happened to her, and that she got airlifted to the hospital, etc. Most of them referred to Gloria as unconscious for 3 weeks before she died. But they basically described it as her being unresponsive. They would speak to her, and most of the time she wasn't saying anything back until that last day when the sister said, I love you, and she said, I love you too, and then unfortunately she passed away. So that's not a big deal or discrepancy, but it's just something that caught my attention. I'm like, okay, it wasn't unconscious, it was unresponsive, so there is a minor difference there. So here's the part that I kind of got confused. Okay. So, they interviewed somebody from the Wall Street Journal, which I know has a lot of credibility, but at times, just a personal opinion. Again, I'm not like a huge media person. I actually particularly dislike the media greatly, for the most part. The Wall Street Journal is a little bit different though, right? Anyway, they interviewed this woman from the Wall Street Journal, and she was talking about the crime scene, and she said that Paul had been shot at close blank range with a shotgun. And then she said that Maggie, it appeared to look like she had been running the opposite way of Paul when she was shot with I believe she said it was an AR rifle as she ran away. I, in all my research on this case, never seen anywhere where information on what their bodies look like or the locations of their bodies were stated. Now, I've done a lot of research on it. However, there's a lot out there, so it's not like totally abnormal that I would not overlook, but I'd miss something, okay? So this might not be new to you, but it's certainly new to me. I'm like, I didn't know that Maggie was trying to run away. I know there was initially rumors that 2 different guns were used and that, they were both shot multiple times. But even that, I never saw it confirmed from law enforcement. I only saw it as a rumor. So then I'm like, all right, where did this lady hear this? Is this true? Did I also miss this somehow? Again, to clarify, I knew there was talk of 2 different guns. I just never seen it confirmed by law enforcement. And then she talked about there was shell casings at the scene, and it appeared like she was saying that the shell casings belonged to a special, specific type of gun that allegedly, this specific, special kind of gun, the Murdaughs owned one. But that it's never been turned in or found. So when she said this, of course I'm like, wait, what? So you're going to tell me that there are shell casings to a specific type of gun, a special gun, and that just by chance the Murdaughs happen to own one of these guns, and you've never found it? It's never been turned in? What? And then I'm like, all right, well, this is the Wall Street Journal lady. I don't know where she's getting this information. I don't know if this is accurate. I don't know, again, if this is another piece of information that I've missed. Is this confirmed stuff? Is this a rumor? Because that's huge. That's enormous. You're going to tell me that one of the murder weapons is a special gun that the Murdaughs also own you can't find? I need more information. Stat. I do remember in the SLED release that there was a redacted evidence, And then it was later said that was a weapon or firearm that was seized at the property. So I'm like, all right, so are you trying to tell me here that the shotgun was found at the property and taken into custody, and now there's this other gun that's supposedly missing, this special gun? Or is this lady misinformed and they really did find the gun and that's the gun that they took into custody? What's going on here? Somebody, please. Because if there was a gun that was seized from the property, and that happened to be the shotgun, and that was one that was owned by the Murdaughs, and the other one is a gun that is a special type of gun that the Murdaughs happen to own and you don't know where it is, well, I think we know who the freaking killer is then, because, come on. So I would like a little bit more clarity on that. So I don't typically do this, but if you're out there in YouTube land and you have confirmed, concrete, not rumor, not something you saw on Reddit, but confirmed information in connection to what this woman was claiming, I would greatly appreciate you emailing me, because, yeah, my ears perked up. That's some interesting stuff right there. Because then if you add that into, there was 2 cars on the Moselle property. Both were registered to the law firm, which is strange. Okay, maybe a company car, but even still strange. I mean, why couldn't Alex put cars under his name? But whatever. But only one of the 2 cars were taken into custody. And it was the one that was located near the dog kennels. So you take that, mix it with these gun claims, which I'm trying to process in my brain now, like what the hell's going on here with these guns, because that's alarming as all hell. Then you add in this car and you're like, what? Yeah. You know who your suspect is, you just might not have enough information just yet. Which, in my opinion, that's more than enough. If you got one of the murder weapons that's attached to him, come on. That's enough for me. But of course, you always want to have a good, strong case. And then there's other evidence, so you got to take that all into account. And then I had the most random of thoughts. There was a part with Alex's lawyer is being interviewed. It was like a clip. And it wasn't like they were interviewing him in the moment. It was a clip of him being interviewed. And he's basically like, he did not kill his wife and son. And then the interviewer is like, well, does he know who killed him? And he goes, I don't think he does. And I'm like, you don't think he does? Don't you think that if he knew, he should be telling that to the police? You didn't ask him that? You didn't say, hey, Alex, do you know who killed your wife and son? Because if you do, you need to tell the police that. He was like, I don't know. I don't know if he knows. Come again? And then there's another clip of him where he's like outside and like reporters are like shoving mics in his face. And they asked how Alex Murdaugh knew Curtis Edward Smith. And he was like, oh, he's a drug dealer. He's been supplying drugs to him for, I don't know, a decade. Which made me go back into what I was saying, I think it was my last video, the video prior, where originally it was said, 2 decades. But then in court, his lawyer said over a decade. And I'm like, all right, why would you say over a decade? I thought it was 2 decades. Like, 10 years versus 20 years or 12 years versus 20 years. That's a big difference, right? You could say over a decade, and that could be 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. But there's a big difference between 13 years and 20 years. So then I had my random thought. And I'm probably not the first one who's thought this. I'm probably about 100% sure I'm not the only one out there. Okay? What if this drug claim, this drug problem, is all nonsense and was totally fabricated in Alex's hospital room by his lawyer. Now, allegedly, in my opinion, don't come for me, lawyer man. I'm just saying, it's my opinion. Actually, you know what? It's not my opinion. I'm just saying, maybe. Okay? Sorry, I have to cover my ass there. So, now, I know Alex had drugs in his system, but it was after he got to the hospital and they were treating him, so it's possible they gave him certain medications, and maybe that's why he turned up as having drugs in his system the day after. I mean, I'm just saying, it's possible. Because we're talking about one lawyer representing another lawyer, okay? And that second lawyer, being Alex Murdaugh, is a part of a family of lawyers, okay? And then you have the whole 14th judicial stuff. And clearly, Alex has a way of manipulation, okay? And so put that all together, and there could have been some type of talk or type of conspiracy, possibly, maybe, in my opinion, that the way to basically make an excuse for all that's been done is to claim that you have this addiction, and that way you can then, go off to rehab rather than go to jail right away. I don't know. Something that came in my mind that never came in my mind prior to today. I mean, yeah, he went to rehab, but it doesn't necessarily mean he definitely had this addiction. I already didn't believe that it was 20 years, because I think people would have known about it much sooner than now, if that were the case. But it definitely has me wondering now if this is all a bunch of another scheme or scam to kind of give an explanation as to why you did the things that you did. And really, initially, his statement after his shooting was sort of manipulative in the sense that it was kind of like, hey, it mentions his wife and son's murder, and, I have an opiate addiction. And then the next day it was like, he's been misappropriating funds. And then it was like, it's all exasperated by this drug use and my wife and son being murdered. But we're not making excuses. So you're kind of trying to make it seem like, here's the explanation. But, don't worry, we're not making excuses for it. Well, if you weren't trying to make excuses for it, then why even mention it? Just say, I've been battling a 20-year opiate addiction, and I made really bad choices, and I own up to that, and this is what happened, without mentioning that it's been exasperated by the deaths of your wife and son, etc. Again, these are all the off the top of my head thoughts that I've had after watching the Dateline episode about 2 hours ago. So if I'm kind of all over the place, forgive me. I just normally type up some notes, but I even just wrote it down with pencil and a notepad and came out here and started recording and speaking. So that's why I'm a little scattered. So if you're new here, I'm not usually kind of jumping all over the place. Even my notes weren't in order of watching the special. I jumped all over the place. And on that note, I want to jump back to this taking advantage of and robbing from a man who is what they called a vulnerable adult, who I would say most likely has special needs. It's one thing that he did that, and I already expressed how angry that made me hearing that. But if you take that further, he did that prior to the death of his own son and his wife. And if he had no conscience about doing that prior to their deaths, I would expect any human being in this world to have some type of guilt and conscience after now losing your own son and your own wife, to be like, I can't believe I did that to Gloria's son. And he didn't. He didn't have guilt because it wasn't that he came forth about it. He got caught. So that major event of losing his 2 very close relatives should have prompted him to want to come forth, to feel that sense of guilt, and it didn't. So that just makes me look at him in an entirely different way. I already was kind of like, what you up to, Alex? What's going on with you, Alex? I don't know, Alex. Has always kind of been my tone with him. But now, I look at him way different. And I could be taking it personal because I do have a child with special needs. But I just think that if you could do that to somebody so vulnerable like that, it's kind of like the people who hurt dogs or kill dogs. I feel like if you can kill an innocent animal or a child, even if you're capable of killing a child, you're capable of basically anything in my mind. Seriously. And it's not like Alex didn't know about Brian. Of course he did. Gloria worked for him for years. And it was mentioned in Dateline that Gloria was not only the housekeeper, she was also a babysitter for his kids, Paul and Buster. So now this woman helped with taking care of your deceased son. And if you had any type of feeling towards that, then you should have a feeling towards Gloria of thankfulness and being grateful. But then you go on to take advantage of her son? And at no point you feel bad about that? You had to get caught instead? So yeah, Alex, you're not on my good list there, bud. So many people want to throw you a bone and say, oh, you may not be a great person, but I don't think that he, killed his wife and son. And, that maybe it's true. Maybe you didn't. But this certainly doesn't help you. I'm sorry. Not in my opinion. So anyway, that's that. That was just a bunch of randomness from me about the Dateline episode. Overall, the rest of it was just, basically what we know already. Nothing was really mouth-dropping besides this gun thing and Brian. I thought the Brian thing was very interesting and very appalling and disgusting and really bothered me. So again, if you have any confirmed information about this gun thing and if this woman was accurate or what, send it my way. I don't know if it's true, if it's not true, if I missed it, if I haven't missed it, if it is just based on rumor and she's just repeating the rumor, I don't know. So help a girl out. And I've also decided that I am going to be working on a whiteboard. I know I keep joking about it, but I'm serious. So serious, I ordered one. Okay? I have to put it up on the wall. I need to look at it. I need to do the layout and the family tree and the money and the people. I have to. I felt the same way about the Daybell case. The Lori Vallows Daybell, the lady, the doomsday mom that they called her. With that case, I sat down with a notebook because I was so freaking confused. There was just so much information and people and dead and missing. I was like, what the hell's going on with these people? And I had to keep track of it. And so I took a notebook and I sat down and I turned the notebook sideways. And I just did basically a tree of people who were dead and how it's connected to this and that and when they died and the date and the time. Otherwise, you just can't make sense of it in the brain. You gotta look at it. You gotta see it and lay it out. So anyway, I'm ending there. And I posted a video last night of another mystery, and definitely not as complex as this, at least not at this point that we know about. But I would highly suggest you taking a listen to it, and please share it. It's out of Oklahoma. 2 men, 59 years old, Dwayne and his friend Jack, who's 76, went missing. And then Dwayne's mom, who's 80, came into town to search for them, and she went missing the next day. Both cars, the mother's car and Jack and Dwayne's car that they were traveling in have been located at 2 different locations, abandoned. The mom's car had the keys in it, and all 3 of them are still missing. And it's a total mystery on what has happened to these people, if it's connected in some way, if it's not, if it is. It's wild. So please take a listen. Please share that. The family is beyond desperate at this point for some clues, tips, or anything, because Jack, 76, and the mom, who's 80, Glenda, both have medical conditions, and Jack requires medication for his diabetes, and it's been days now that Jack and Dwayne have been missing, and Glenda has been missing. I believe she went missing Monday night. So again, please share that. And that is all. So until next time. Sorry, no, I actually was not done, and I stopped recording and I saved it, and so I had to make an addition to this. I forgot to mention something else I wanted to say about the gun situation. Now, I said before on this channel that I follow a lot of cases, probably more cases than I should, because it takes time. And I wanted to say 2 things. One is, it's not typical by any means for somebody, a killer, to go to where they're going to kill somebody and they go there and grab a weapon to shoot or stab or something to that effect. What do I mean by that? Well, there was the Darlie Routier case, and in that case, I know there's a lot of people who think she's innocent. I've looked at all the evidence that people say point to her innocence. I'm not sold. And one of the biggest talking points in that case was that a knife from the home was used. And they were trying to claim that somebody broke in and then took the knife to kill the kids, or the 2 boys. While I'm sure there are cases out there that people do that, especially if you kill somebody in the heat of the moment. Let's say you're standing in the kitchen of somebody's house and you're arguing and you grab the knife and you stab them. Yes, then you would be using a weapon from their place. But if you're set out to go all the way out into the country to the Moselle property to kill Maggie and Paul, you're not going to be like, oh shit, I forgot a weapon, let me go in their home and grab a gun to kill them. No, you're going to come back another time with your own damn weapon. So there's a difference between planning to go do something and it happening in the moment. And through all the cases that I followed, I don't recall off the top of my head, unless it was a heat of the moment type situation where somebody set out to go kill somebody and they end up using their weapon at the house. That's just odd in itself, okay? That's number 1. The second thing is that normally, now this happens more frequently than the thing we just talked about, but normally, once you're done using a weapon of sorts, you don't usually leave it behind. Sometimes it happens again in the heat of the moment. You're like freaking out and you just seem to forget it there. But normally, you're going to take it with you. Whether it's a knife, a gun, a rock, something, you're going to want to take that with you, especially if you're not wearing gloves. You know that your fingerprints are going to be all over it, etc. So now I know that the Murdaughs, did like duck hunting and things of the sort. So that evidence sheet that talks about taking a firearm into custody, was that just one of the family's guns that they just took just in case it was used? Or was it actually found at the scene by the dog kennels? Because that would be very odd, in my opinion, that somebody went there or 2 people go there and shoot these 2 individuals, and they leave one of the 2 weapons there. That would be really weird. And I would find it extremely bizarre if the gun that was taken into custody was the one was found at the scene, and it happened to be the family's own gun, because that means that that person went there with the intention to kill, but then went in the house and found their gun and took their gun to kill them and then left it behind. That's just too weird for me. Some things you can be like, oh, well, maybe, but that's just too far-fetched, in my opinion. Now, let's say they were killed in the home. Then I would say, okay, maybe they were being robbed, and in the middle of being robbed, they realized that Paul and Maggie were there, and they were like, oh shit, and they grab a gun, and they go to, kill them. Okay, maybe. But to go in the house and get their gun and all that other jazz. So was this particular gun that was found and taken into custody just taken into custody as a precaution because it was a gun that was at the Murdaugh home at Moselle Road? Or was it at the kennels? I think that is really key and belonged to the family. I would think that the Murdaughs probably have multiple guns and not just one. So I'm not really totally sure that it was a gun that just they happened to own and they took it into custody. I just don't think that. I mean, if they're avid duck hunters, why can't I say duck hunters? I must be tired. Duck hunters, I would assume that they have multiple different types of guns in that home. Anywho, just more ramblings for me, and now I'm officially done, so I'm out. Until next time.